We begin today the Gemara on the Ayin Amid Beis at the Mishnah towards the bottom of the Amid. Zokteilige Mishnah by Leshes, an army, a unit of an army that's coming into a city. They're called a Beleshes, as Rashi says. This is an army that comes and searches in people's houses. Shenichnas aliyir. So they entered into a city. And now there's wine, there's barrels of wine from Yidden, and the question is whether there's a concern that they use this wine, they pour the wine for Avoda Zara. So b'shas shalom, if it's a time of peace, then I say chavis psuchais, open barrels of wine asurais will be aser, because there is a concern that they used it. Stumais, however, the closed barrels of wine mutaris will be allowed. But if it's b'shas mulchama, if it's in a time of war, then elu ve'elu mutaris. Either way, even open barrels of wine will be allowed. Lefishain pnai lenasich. They don't have time to play around to pour wine. They're in a hurry during a war, so there's nothing to be concerned about. But I'll ask you a contradiction from what we learned in another place in a braysa about this, that a city that was conquered by Acharkaim, which is an army that placed a siege on a city, and then they come in and they conquer the city. Call kohenes shebesaycha, any of the kohenes that are in this city, which means that they're married to husbands that are kohenim. That's the main point there, really. Slav dafka that they are kohenes, but they're the wives of kohenim. Psulais will be puzzled to go back to their husbands, because there's a concern that this army, they come into a city, and even if it's a time of war, as it says there, they were acharkim, they were placing a siege on the city. But they come into the city and they go and they defile the woman in the city. And now, even if it's by a kohen, the halacha is that if his wife had a relation with someone else, even b'derech eines, she's still aser to her husband. So therefore, over here, there's a concern, she can't go back to her husband. So the question of the Gemara is that we see that even in a time of war, they have the time to play around with these kind of things. So why wouldn't we say the same regarding the wine, that even in a time of war, for the open barrels of wine, it should be aser? Amarav Mari, so Rav Mari answers, there's a difference. Lanasech ein pnai. For wine, where the Yetzirah for wine, to drink this wine is not so big, so therefore they're busy with war, they're not going to stop and play around with wine. But live oil yesh pnai. But the relation with this women, where the Yetzirah is much stronger, for this they'll find time even during their war, even during fighting. And therefore you have to be concerned for the wives of the Kohanim, that they can't go back to their husbands. Yeah.
The Torah is even aware.
Dibra Torah connected Yetzirah. Similar concept, even by a Yid, such a thing, correct? Or a Yifas Taya, that is. Okay. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Umanin Shal Yisrael. When you have craftsmen, Yidden, this is employers, and they have their employee is a guy, and he has to pay his employers. So what happens here? So you have these craftsmen. Sheshalach lehem oivik kachavim. So this guy, they're working for, sends them as a payment. Chavis shal yayin nesach b'scharon. The payment is a barrel of yayin nesach. So obviously the Yid can't have enough from this. So what is he going to do? He wants to give back this payment and get instead money. Mutter loymar. The Yid is allowed to say to his employer, "Ten lanu as the mel, give us money instead of the barrel of wine that you sent us." Because as long as the Yid was not kaineh this barrel of wine yet, so he can say to the employer, "I'm not expecting a payment of this barrel of wine. The barrel of wine is not mine. Take it back. It's yours. It's not mine at all. Instead, pay me cash or any other kind of payment." The money that you're getting for this is not considered to be that you're having hana now with money in exchange of a barrel of wine of yayin nesach that you want. It's not exchange for yayin nesach. The yayin nesach belongs to him. You're giving it back to him, and you're taking money instead. Rashi here brings that we had earlier in the Gemara similar thing when a case where a guy owes a Yid money, a loan, and the guy wants to pay with Avoda Zara or yayin nesach. The Yid tells the guy, "Keep your yayin nesach and pay me some other way," and that's allowed. However, if this wine that the guy paid this employer, the Yid, already came into his possession, he was kainet, so now the yayin nesach is yours, and you want to exchange this yayin nesach for money, then osir. And it's a problem, because you're getting money instead of the yayin nesach. That's exchange for yayin nesach, which is going to be osir b'hana. So the Gemara, similar halacha, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Rav Yudah said in the name of Rav, Mutal Adam Loim Eloi V'Kachavim, a Yid is allowed to say to a guy, Tzei v'hafes alai menasa melech. Go and take care of me, for me that is, for what I owe the king. So this is basically regarding taxes. Rashi says this is called arnuna. When you own produce, you own animals, so there's a certain tax, a tenth, whatever it is, that you have to give for the king. And the Yid tells the guy that you take care of this for me to pay for the king this tax that's owed. And now the Yid knows that the guy may give the king yayin nesach for the taxes, for the king, for the Yid's behalf. But that's allowed. And we're not going to say that this is considered to be that the guy, what he's giving is in the shlichus of the Yid, in the place of the Yid, and therefore if the guy is giving yayin nesach, so then it's like the Yid that's giving yayin nesach. And therefore it comes out that you're having hana, paying off your taxes with this yayin nesach. So Rav says, no, it's not a problem. Because the guy doesn't necessarily have to give yayin nesach. You're telling the guy to take care of this matter for me, and he can give yayin nesach or he can give something else. So therefore it's not a problem.
And when he pays him back?
I don't know if he's paying him back. That's not the discussion here. That's not the issue over here. So, but in this, the Gemara asks, it says in the Braise, Al yomer adam lo v'kachavim. A person should not say to a guy, Ul tachti la'oitzer. You take my place in going to the oitzer, in going to the ruler. You should take my place to go and pay for the king or for the ruler, whatever is owed to him. Here, so it says that you can't say this to him. Why? Because then when the guy will pay yayin nesach, then it'll be a problem. Then you're having hana of that yayin nesach that he's playing in your place. It's like he's doing it in your shlichus, so you're having hana from this yayin nesach. So you clearly see that this is a problem. Amalei Rav, so Rav answered, you can't compare in the language that the Yid said to the guy in this Braisa is different. All tachti la'oitzakamrit, when you use such a strong language and you say, you're going to be in my place to go to the ruler, if you're using that expression, definitely whatever the guy is doing, he's taking the place, he's the representative of the Yid, and therefore if he pays with yayin nesach, it's like the Yid that's doing this and having a na with this. So rather, Rav says, the case that I was speaking about, when the Yid tells the guy, save a hafes alai, go and appease the king, go and take care of this matter. So what is the language that I was talking about compared to? Elalah, to this case. Avol oimerloi, it says there further in the Braise that you're allowed to tell the guy, malteni menaitzer, save me of this taxes that I have from this ruler that's trying to collect my taxes. You're not appointing the guy to be in your place. You're just telling him, take care of this matter for me, save me from this ruler that's out to come and collect from me. In such a case, where you didn't mamish put him in your place, over here, it's allowed to have the guy pay it for you, even if he ends up using yayin nesach for this as well. So it depends on the language that's used for this. Are you mamish putting the guy in your place or not?
So you can't, in one hand, it sounds like a shlichus, but it's not.
Correct. That's the point here. And when using this language, that's exactly what Ashir says. Lav shluchah, so he's not considered to be the shlichus of the Yid. A person sells wine to a guy. Okay, so now what this Mishnah is going to discuss is there's a problem. There could be a problem when a Yid is selling wine to a guy because you can't have a no from yayin nesach. So what happens if the guy touches the wine and pours the wine, he makes it yayin nesach before the sale is in effect. So that means that when it's still owned by the seller, by the Yisrael, it's already yayin nesach. And then you're selling it to the guy makes the kinyan after it already became yayin nesach, so now you're selling yayin nesach. The money that you get paid for this is you're having a no from yayin nesach. So what do you do in order to make sure that this wine should not become yayin nesach before the sale is in effect? So you sell wine to a guy, so now pasak, if you set the price with him already, achaloi madad, before you measure him the amount of wine that you're giving him, so now the dam of mutarim, the payment that you get for the sale of this wine will be allowed to have a no from. Because the reason is the sale takes effect even before he touches the wine. So now one pshat of this Mishnah is, the simplest way of understanding this Mishnah is that the guy acquires it. How does he acquire it? By taking it. This is what's usually known as the kinyan of Meshicha. He takes it into his own possession, so he acquires it. So once the guy acquired it, and then afterwards he touches it. So yeah, it becomes Yayin Nesach when he touches it, but it's a Yayin Nesach after the fact, after the sale. So therefore, the payment that the Yid gets for this is not having a no of any Yayin Nesach that's in your possession. Okay, but here the point is, the Mishnah is saying, when does this work if you already set the price in advance? So then when the guy does that kinyan of Meshicha, he relies on this to be a real sale because he knows what the price is. So therefore the guy is kained, and there's no problem if he's going to touch it after the sale is already in effect. However, Madad at Shaloi Pasak, you're measuring and you're pouring the wine for the guy, and you never even set a price yet. So even if the guy is going to make a kinyan, he's going to take it with Meshicha, there's no kinyan here yet because the guy doesn't know the price. If he doesn't know the price, not the buyer, not the seller, the Yid himself rely on the sale being in effect. So if the guy touches the wine at this point, what happens? It becomes Yayin Nesach, and it's still the Yid's wine. So if you're selling him this wine that's Yayin Nesach, then Asurin. Whatever money you're going to make from this, the payment is going to be Asur. Okay, so I said the pshat here in the Mishnah, according to one opinion, as we'll see here in the Gemara. The main discussion in the Gemara over here is going to be regarding this point of the kinyanim by a guy. What kinyan is effective by a guy when it comes to movable items? So we know, this is a big discussion here, Taisus Rishayim speak about this. The Gemara doesn't give the whole background for this, but Taisus over here brings that there's the machlekes that's brought in the Gemara many times, b'negeya to a Yid that makes a kinyan of movable items. What is the kinyan min atayra? Is it kesef? Or is it Meshicha? According to Rabbi Yechanan, the kinyan and atayra by Yid is kesef, even for movable items. Elamai, there's a takanas chachamim that the kinyan with kesef should not take effect, but rather you should use Meshicha, for whatever reason. According to Reish Lakish, the kinyan by Yid is only Meshicha, not with money. Money is for a karka. For a metaltalin, the kinyan is Meshicha. That's the background of this inyan of the Gemara. Now the question is, when they get to a guy, when a guy buys a movable item, in this case in the Mishnah we're talking about wine, what's the kinyan? Is it kesef or meshicha? Omer HaMeimer, so HaMeimer says, meshicha ba'oiv kechavim kaina. Meshicha, which means drawing, pulling it, taking it into your possession, will be kaina by a guy. Now here when the Gemara says meshicha is one example, but the Gemara really means to say different kinds of kinyanim besides kesef. That there's meshicha, there's Hagbah, there's Mesira. These are all similar, but these are kinyanim, not kesef. Meshicha is when something is very heavy, like an animal usually is where the kinyan of Meshicha applies. Sometimes, some animals, Meshicha, you pull it, you take it towards you into your possession. Mm-hmm. If it's an item which is smaller, that is light enough to lift up, so then the kinyan is usually a Hagbah, not Meshicha. But here when the Gemara says Meshicha, it doesn't only mean Meshicha. It means Meshicha, Hagbah, and these kinds of kinyanim that are not kesef. So these are the kinyanim that take effect by a guy. Pulling it, that's what Mashiach is, yeah. Teida, and he says, Amem says, I'll prove this to you because the Hani Parsoi, Mishadri Bardashni La Dodi, these Persians, they send gifts to one another. And when you take it into your possession, we see that they keep the gift and they don't allow, or they don't have charata, the buyer does not back out of the sale. Why didn't they back out? Because once you do that, Mashiach, you take it into your possession, you don't back out. The sale is fully in effect. Ashir brings another pshat in the name of the Gainim regarding this pardashni. Pardashni is when you're looking to sell a large amount of wheat, and the buyer comes to see the wheat, and then the seller delivers to him a small amount of wheat, and if he likes it, so then he keeps it, and then the sale is in effect for all of the big amount of wheat. And over there, their minig was, once they took this small amount of wheat, they kept it, they didn't have charata from this. So this proves that we see that by Goyim, the Meshicha itself, the kinyan stays in effect.
Dirt is not a matana?
Again?
Dirt, that says dirt.
Yeah, that's the first pshat Rashi. Yeah, it is a matana. That's the first pshat Rashi. It's a matana.
So it's not a sale?
It's the same thing. Whether it's a gift, whether it's with money that you're selling, you have to have a ma'isa kinyan. You need to have some kind of proper action for the kinyan to be kaina. Ravashi argues and says, no, the truth is that Meshicha by Goyim in itself is not a good action to have a kinyan. So why is it that by the Persians we see that once they take it into their possession, they don't retract from this? It's just a haughtiness that it's a past sinish. Once I took it, and now I'm going to come back, and I'm going to have charata from this kinyan, so they didn't want to have charata. But in essence, there really is no kinyan in effect if it's just meshicha without payment of money. The kinyan is dafka kesef. Okay, so Taisus over here says, based on the point that I started off with, that really the machlokes here between Ameimer and Avashi is not based on the custom of the Persians. That's not what this is all based on. It's really based on the machlokes of Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan regarding the kinyan by a yid. By the lashon of the pasuk where it says the kinyan of Mashiach, according to Rish Lakish, it says Oikonoi miyad amisecha. From amisecha you learn out your friend, which refers to another yid, that the kinyan by a yid and the kinyan by a guy is different. So according to Rish Lakish, if the kinyan by a yid is Mashiach, so then by a guy the kinyan is kesef. If according to Rabbi Yochanan, if the kinyan by a yid is kesef, then the kinyan by a guy is Mashiach. So our Meimer is following the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. That's really what this is based on. Amar Ravashi, so Ravashi said, Mina aminallah. How do I know my opinion that Mashiach is not going to be kaina by a guy? Midam lahu Rav, because we from what Rav paskint. Rav said lahanis savoyasa, for those that were selling wine, and the Yidden, they're selling wine to a guy. Basically the case that our Mishnah is talking about. So Rav told those people that are selling wine to Goyim, Ki kailisu chamre loev dekechavim, when you measure the wine into the vessels of the Goyim, or it doesn't necessarily mean into the vessels of the Goyim, we'll see in a moment, but it's when you measure the wine for the Goyim, shaklu zuziminayo, make sure that they pay you for this wine first, and v'hadar kailon lahu, and only then afterwards measure the wine for them, give them the wine. Why? What's the point that Rav is saying? Going back to the point that we learned in the Mishnah, you can't first have the guy touch the wine and make it yayin nesach and then sell it to him, because then you're having anah from the yayin nesach when it became yayin nesach when it was yours. You have to first get the payment from him. When you get the payment, the sale is in effect, and then you can give the wine to the guy, and there's no problem of you having anah of the yayin nesach. The yayin nesach is his. Now, if the guy comes to buy the wine and he has no money to pay, so you can't have him pay first, so what you should do is, lend him money, and then the guy will pay you back that money. So the guy technically paid you for it, so there was a kinyan of kesef that was done already. Now the guy still owes you money because you gave him the money and he gave it right back to you. But the point is, that's enough to create a kinyan, and then the guy will owe you money separately. And v'hader shakila minayu, take back that money from them. So now the money that the guy owes you is not going to be the money for this very sale itself that is not yet in effect. That'll be a separate loan, and then everything will be good. Then there'll be no problem with the yayin nesach here. And it says, Rav explained, the loy of disoachi, if you're not going to do this, if you're not going to have the kinyan of kesef with money before, so then ki kahavi yayin nesach, if the guy comes and then touches and pours the wine, that's still when it's owned by the yid. And then v'chisha klisu, when you're going to take the money from the guy, demei yayin nesach kashaklisu, you're getting paid money in exchange for this yayin nesach that was yours. It's going to be a problem. This was what Rav said you should do when you're selling wine to a guy. Okay, so now it says Ravashi, so this is pretty clear. You see over here that the kinyan of a guy is with kesef, not with Mashiach, like our Meimer said. If you're going to say that when the guy pulls and takes this barrel of wine to himself, into his possession, that itself is the kinyan, so then what's the problem? When the Yid is measuring the wine for the guy and he gives it to the guy and the guy takes the wine for himself, Kanye. So the guy already acquires this wine, and then it will not be yayin nesach until the guy touches it. Why is it necessary for the Yid to make the kinyan with kesef, should get paid from the guy, and only then will we say that the kinyan is in effect? Okay, so the Gemara says, no, there was a reason why Rav over here said, dafke the kinyan of kesef, or that the guy that is should pay kesef. Because if the case over here is that the Yid is giving the guy the wine and he's measuring it and giving it to the guy in the Yid's barrel, the Yid's own barrel of wine, so then hochanami, you're right. It wouldn't be necessary to have the guy to pay first for this. You can have the guy do mashiach, and that's when the guy will acquire it, and there's no problem with yayin nesach. But over here, what was Rav speaking about? The words of Rav is not needed only in the following case. The kakayel v'rami l'mana do'evik that the Yid is pouring the wine into the barrel of the guy. And when the Yid pours the wine into the barrel of the guy, so over here, it becomes yayin nesach right away. Because the barrel of the guy has wine in it. It's his own barrel of wine that has already some wine in it, and he comes with this barrel to the Yid, sell me wine, and the Yid pours into this barrel the wine. As soon as it goes into the barrel, right away, even before any Meshicha, you say, the guy could do Meshicha, but before any Meshicha, it right away becomes Yayin Nesach. So how are you going to prevent the problem here of it being Yayin Nesach before you're selling it to the guy? So over here, you have to have the guy give kesef first. Only if the guy gives kesef first, then it'll take care of the problem. So in this case, Meshicha is already going to be too late. That's the answer over here. Okay, but now just to clarify a point here, the Rishonim explain what's the point of giving kesef. We're trying to explain now how what Rav is saying would fit with the opinion of Ameimar that says that kesef is b'chlal not a kinyan. So if kesef is not a kinyan, and as soon as you're pouring it for the guy, it becomes yayin nesach before Meshicha, which is the only kinyan possible according to Ameimar for a guy. So it still belongs to the Yid, and it becomes yayin nesach as soon as it goes into the barrel of the guy. So how is giving kesef before going to help? So the Rishonim say that according to this, Rav, when he was saying that you should give kesef before, is not in order for the kinyan to be in effect. The kesef doesn't make any kinyan. The point of the kesef is that the Yid has to tell the guy, you want to buy the wine from me? The deal is that give me kesef, and the kesef is going to be mine from now, not later. And therefore, this kesef that's mine from now, it has nothing to do with the yayin nesach that I'm selling you. The yayin nesach, you're going to make a kinyan of Meshicha later, only kinyan Meshicha. And then, you're not going to have to pay me for it anymore. Why? Because the kesef that you're giving me, you're going to give me an advance kesef, not related to the kinyan. Give me kesef in advance that will be mine now, and therefore that kesef is not going to be as an exchange for the yayin nesach. That's what Rav was saying, according to what the Gemara is suggesting right now. Okay, but again, the point over here is that the Gemara is saying that because it's going directly into the barrel of the guy, Meshicha would be too late. It becomes yayin nesach right away, as soon as it hits the wine of the guy. So now the Gemara asks on this, well, if this is the case, Saf kimata la avira damane kanya. But you still shouldn't need to have a kinyan of kesef, because there's another kinyan over here. As soon as the Yid pours the wine into the barrel that the guy has, in the airspace of that barrel, the guy should be kind it right away. Why? Why would the guy be kind it right away? So the Gemara's assumption at this point is that the guy is holding this barrel in his hands. So as soon as the wine comes into the airspace of this barrel, the guy would be kind of this wine with what kinyan? Not Meshicha, but with Hagbah. Because the guy is holding the barrel in his hands, and he's lifting it up, and he's going to be kind of right away. So if so, why do you have to have this kinyan of kesef over here? And so, as I mentioned before, according to Ravashi, the kinyan of a guy is dafka kesef, nothing else. According to Ameimar, it could be Meshicha, and it's either Meshicha or Hagbah. It depends if it's light or if it's heavy. But according to Ameimar, where the kinyan is Meshicha by a guy, so the kinyan is also Hagbah. So if he's holding the barrel in his hands, as soon as the wine that the Yid pours to the guy enters into the airspace of the barrel, the guy should be kind of this right away. And Yayin Nesach loy it won't be Yayin Nesach, Adamati la arisa demana. Only once the wine doesn't just enter the airspace, but it actually comes to the bottom of the barrel where there's wine of the guy there, and it mixes with the barrel with the wine that's in the barrel at the bottom. So it would only become yayin nesach a second afterwards. The kinyan happens when it enters into the airspace, and it becomes yayin nesach when it hits the wine at the bottom. So why did Rav have to say that you have to make a kinyan of kesef before? So Elamai, this is still a chayra araya that not Meshicha or Hagbah would work. You have to have dafka the kinyan of kesef by a guy. Okay, just to clarify a point here, the Ritva explains that this is a very interesting thing, that you have a kinyan of Hagbah by the guy holding the barrel in his hands and the wine entering into the airspace of this barrel. It's a very, very interesting kind of a kinyan, because the Yid is not really, not the Yid here, it's a guy. The guy is not really lifting up this wine. Hagbah means you take an item and you lift it up. That's the act of the kinyan. The wine enters into the airspace of the barrel that the guy is holding, and that creates a kinyan with no real action of lifting up in the wine. So the Ritva says that this is based on the concept that the Gemara says, because it's in the airspace of the barrel and it's going to land there, it's as if you lifted up that wine. It's an interesting concept. No, not to that extent. No, but it didn't mix. Yain nesach has to touch the wine. It has to mix. Okay, so now the Gemara says maybe we should say as follows: Shma mino. In order to answer this question, I could say that from here I can prove that nitzuk chibur, that because there's a stream that's flowing from the wine, so that stream that flows and it touches the wine at the bottom, as soon as there's a drop that touches the wine at the bottom, so then the entire stream, which is connected to all of the wine that he's selling him, it all becomes yayin nesach right away. I'm not going to say that it only becomes yayin nesach once it all actually mixes at the bottom inside the wine. No, even before it all mixes. Even if it just touches a drop, now the whole rest of it will all be connected. The whole stream is connected and therefore becomes yayin nesach right away. That's why the hagbah, to be kind with the hagbah, is not going to be good enough, because there's going to be a big portion of it that's going to become yayin nesach right away. So l'chayre, that's what we have to prove from here in order to answer for ameimer. Now this halacha of nitzuk, of this stream being connected to create yayin nesach, it's actually a machlokes here later, as we'll see soon, and then later here in another few blot. So the Gemara says, okay, so no, the case over here that Rav was speaking about is different. Loi, that's not the story here. If the case here was that the guy was holding the barrel of wine in his hands, so then hachanami, you're right, that it wouldn't be necessary to give kesef before, because the hagbah could be kind of from before. So the case over here is the monach ha'ara. This barrel of wine of the guy is sitting on the ground. It is no kinyan of hagbah here. The guy comes into the yid's store and he puts down the barrel on the floor. So it is no kinyan of hagbah. And there's no kinyan of meshicha. Meshicha would be too late because it mixes into the wine of the barrel. So the only thing you could do is give the money before. But the Gemara asks, well, if it's still the barrel of the guy, why do you have to give kesef? There's another kind of kinyan. The tikni like kelov. Why wouldn't I say that the wine is acquired by the guy in his keli? The keli itself should be a kinyan. Why wouldn't the keli, the fact that the wine is inside the keli itself, be a kinyan if it's the keli of the guy? Why? Because there's a kinyan of chotzer. That's what the Gemara is referring to here now. If I place something into someone else's courtyard, chotzer itself is a kinyan. So the keli of the guy is his domain, it's his possession, and therefore if the yid pours the wine into this keli, it should be a kinyan right away. So says the Gemara, Shamit Mina, the fact that we're not relying on that kinyan, shouldn't we be able to prove from here that kelov shalikeach, that if it's a keli of the lekeach, the guy in this case, and it's in the possession of the yid, the seller, the kinyan does not take effect, which is also machlokes. There's a discussion about this regarding the kinyan of chotzer. If you have the vessel of the buyer in the possession of the seller, could that be considered his chotzer because it's his keli and it's inside the interior of his keli? Or do I say, no, your keli in someone else's courtyard, so then you can't be kind of through kinyan chotzer? So over here, it seems like that you're going to have to say, according to Rav, that it's not kinyan, and like kana like keach, and therefore the only way that it shouldn't be a problem with yayin nesach is if you give kesef in advance. So the Gemara says, loy, not necessarily. Loy I can tell you kana like keach, that the lekeach, in this case, the guy, he will acquire the wine in his keli with the kinyan of chotzer. But there's still a problem. The case over here is the ikke akvas yayin apume de chazanta. Over here, you can't say that you're kind of with kinyan chotzer as soon as it enters into the interior of the keli. That's already too late. There's already an issue of yayin nesach before that. Why? Because this barrel, the opening of the barrel apparently is narrow, and on the edges of this barrel, when the wine goes in, there's drops of the yayin nesach that's there at the opening of the barrel. So when the yid pours the wine into this barrel, it touches the yayin nesach that it's at the opening of the barrel, and it becomes yayin nesach before it enters into the interior of the barrel. So the yayin nesach is actually the problem of yayin nesach. It mixes with the yayin nesach before the kinyan happens in the interior of the keli. That's why the kama insichle, every drop in the beginning that you pour is becomes right away yayin nesach. It mixes with these drops of wine. According to when it comes to yayin nesach, even a drop of yayin nesach that mixes with the wine, it doesn't become bottled because it's also b'mashu, it becomes all yayin nesach. So therefore, it's going to be a problem. That's why Rav said you have to give the kesef before. Now the Gemara says on this answer, Ukaman, according to whose opinion is this, that the issue over here is when you're selling this wine to the guy, that it's going to mix with the drops of the yayin nesach that's at the opening of the barrel. It would seem that it's the loik Rab Shimon Gamliel. This doesn't follow the opinion of Rab Shimon Gamliel. Because the Rab Shimon Gamliel, if this would be according to Rab Shimon Gamliel's opinion, Ha'amar, Rab Shimon Gamliel said here, another few blocks in the Masechta, he says that what do you do in a case where you have wine that mixed with yayin nesach? He says, Yimacha kulay lo'ev dekachavim. It's not going to become all asabana. You can still use it. You can sell it all to a guy. Chutz midmei yayin nesach shabay. You just have to deduct that value of money of the mixture of the yayin nesach and that you throw out. But you can still have an eye. You can still use it. So if so, over here, you're saying that the problem is that you're selling this wine to the guy and it mixes with the yayin nesach, and therefore you have to make sure that you get the money before. So if it mixes, it's not a problem. You just deduct that small, tiny value of whatever mixed, but you can still have an off from it. So the Gemara that no, there's no question from Rab Shimon Gamliel's opinion. Rashi here says the reason Gemara is asking for Rab Shimon Gamliel's opinion because the klal usually is that whenever you have a statement of Rab Shimon Gamliel in the Mishnah, we paskin like Rab Shimon Gamliel. But the Gemara says actually, but not according to Rav. Midi hu taime el Rav. We're trying to explain the pshat of this case here, to explain Rav's statement that you have to give the money before. Now, Rav said regarding this halacha of Rab Shimon Gamliel that halacha Rab Shimon Gamliel. When do we pass like Rab Shimon Gamliel? When there's a mixture with yayin nesach that you can still have a no, as long as you throw out that you deduct that value of the yayin nesach only if it's chavis b'chavis, one barrel of wine that mixed with other barrels of wine. Avalo yayin b'yayin, but not in a case if it's actual mixture of wine itself that got mixed yayin nesach into the wine itself. Over here, he says, Rav says, we don't pass like Rab Shimon Gamliel, and the whole thing will become aser. And that's why over here it's a problem, and Rav said you have to give the money before. Okay, now the Gemara is going to goes back here to the machlekes itself between Ameimar and Rav Ashi regarding the kinyan by a guy. Is the kinyan Meshicha or is the kinyan with Kesef? So the Gemara asks, Meisvei, it says in the Braisa, we had this earlier in the Masechta, Halakech grutois min oivdik kachavim. A person buys broken pieces of metal from a guy, umatzabeh and Avoda Zara. Amongst them he found an Avoda Zara in it. So imat shaloi nasa mois, if before the Yid paid, Moshach, he took it into his possession, so he did the act of Meshicha, but he didn't pay yet, so Yachzer, he can give it back to the guy. This Avoda Zara he gives back to the guy, and he gets his money back for this Avoda Zara. And there's no problem that you're getting money in exchange for the Avoda Zara that you're returning, because the kinyan didn't take effect for this, so you're just giving it back to the guy. However, if you already paid and then you took it into your possession, so then Yelech liyam melach. So then this Avoda Zara that you got in this sale is yours already. You paid money for this, and therefore you can't now give it back to the guy and get back your money, because then it's like a sale. You're getting money back for this Avoda Zara that you already own. So now the Gemara says this is a question on Ameimar, because Isal Kedaitoch Meshicha B'Evikachavim Kaina. If you'll say that without money, just the Meshicha, the act of taking it to you, that's the kinyan when you make a kinyan with a guy. In this case, the seller is the guy. So then Amay Yachzer. So then why is it saying here that in the ratio of this price that you can give it back to the guy because you didn't pay yet and you didn't acquire it yet, but you did. You made Meshicha. Amar Abaye, the answer is it doesn't matter if you made Meshicha. There is no sale in effect. Mishum de mechzik mekach tos, because this is a case which is a mekach tos. You told the guy, I want to buy from you pieces of metal, and you find an Avoda Zara in it. You didn't want to buy Avoda Zara. The whole thing is a mekach tos, so you never acquired this Avoda Zara. The lashon of the Gemara, mechzi, mekach tos, the Gemara doesn't mean to say that it's not an actual mekach tos, that it looks like a mekach. It's an actual mekach tos. The Gemara uses the lashon mechzi, that not only is it a mekach tos, but everybody knows, it's clear for everyone to see that this is a mekach tos. Well, so the Gemara asks on this, Rav asks on this, if so, reisha mekach tos. So in the first case of this Braisa, when he didn't pay for it yet, there it's a mekach tos, and Sefer lav mekach tos, and the Sefer when he paid for it already, there it's not a mekach tos. Why is the Braisa making a distinction, whether you paid for it or not? Either way, it's a mekach tos, because he didn't intend to buy the Avoda Zara. Elo Marave, so therefore Rav explains, Reisha v'Sefer mekach tos. Both cases, whether you paid or not, it's always a mekach tos. V'Reisha de lo yav zuzi. In the ratio whether you didn't pay for this yet, it doesn't look like that this is a Avoda Zara that's owned by the Yid and he's giving it back and he's getting his money back. It doesn't look that way because he didn't give any money yet. So it just looks like you're returning something which was a mistake. Seifa, the Yav Zuzi, and the Seifa, since the Yid paid for this already, so even though the truth is that it was a Mekach Tos, but Mischazi, Kavetz Gechavim, Biyad Yisrael, it looks like that this is Avoda Zara that's owned now by a Yid, that he paid for it already, and he gives it back to the guy, and he gets his money back. It looks like he's buying Avoda Zara, or he's actually returning and getting money for Avoda Zara. That's why in the Seifa, it's a problem. Amalei Markishisha Berei de Rav Chisda. Markishisha asks Rav Chisda on this, or Ravashi. He said to Ravashi, that again Ravashi is the one that says that the kinyan by a guy is kesef. So he asked him the question, Toshama. Now let's go back to our Mishnah. That's why we brought up this whole discussion here, to explain the pshat in our Mishnah, where the Mishnah spoke about the case, a Yid selling the wine to a guy. So what did it say in our Mishnah? Toshama, he's selling the wine to a guy. So the Mishnah said, Pasak, if you set the price, Achalei Madad, before you measure the wine that you're pouring for the guy. And then, Dom of Mutarim. The payment that the Yid gets for this is not payment for Yayin Nesach that was in your possession, Yayin Nesach. It's Yayin Nesach only after the sale, so you can keep the money. So the question is, if you're going to say that Meshicha by a guy is no kinyan at all, so am I Dom of Mutarim? Why would the money be allowed? The Gemara's understanding that the pshat in the Mishnah here is, you set the price, and the guy took the wine, that's the Meshicha, and then he touched it. So he touched it after he already bought it. It's his already. Therefore, the money that the Yid gets paid is not a problem. So in our Mishnah, as I explained it, when we learned the Mishnah, the pshat here is that the guy already has a kinyan in effect because of Meshicha. So you see that the Meshicha is the kinyan, like our Meimer says. Answers the Gemara, no. We could say the pshat of the Mishnah is different. The pshat of the Mishnah is the aktim late dinner, that you set a price, and the guy gives the Yid money, he gives him a dinner, and that's the kinyan. And then the guy touched it. So the point there is not the Mashiach, it's the Kesef. You gave him a dinner. That's why there's no problem with the Yayin Nesach.
Like a deposit.
Yeah, correct. It doesn't have to necessarily be the full value. Just a dinner is the deposit. That makes the kinyan. But the Gemara asks him this, but if that's the case, that the guy paid for this already, so that's the kinyan. Same as Sefer. What was the next case of the Mishnah? Madad actually pasak, that if the Yid measures the wine for the guy and there was no price set, so then Dam of Asurin. What the Yid gets paid for it is going to be Asur, because then I say it was already Yayin Nesach in the Rishus of the Yid before the kinyan was in effect. So you're making money off Yayin Nesach. But the question is, we the cotton late dinner, but if the Yid already got a payment, a kinyan, a dinner from a guy that creates a payment, creates a kinyan from before, amai dam of asurin, why should the money that the Yid gets paid be forbidden? The kinyan is already in effect from before. So Hamalei, Rav Ashi answered, why asking this question on my opinion? Explaining the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa of the Mishnah is not a question only on my opinion. According to you, according to Ameimar, the Amrit Meshicha Ba'ivik Achavim Kaina, that you say that the kinyan by a guy is Meshicha, so then you could ask the same question. Amai Reisha Dom of Mutarim. Why in the Reisha is the money allowed, and the Seifa Dom of Asurin? And why in the Seifa is the money not allowed? If you made Meshicha in the Reisha and the Seifa, you made Meshicha. The guy already acquired the wine. It's Yain Nesach in the guy's possession, so it shouldn't be a problem. So what's the answer to this question? That there's a difference. The difference between the Reish and the Seifa, as I explained it in the Mishnah, it all depends on whether you set the price. When you set the price, then when you make a Maisa Kinyan, it's valid. If you don't set a price, you can do any Maisa Kinyan from today till tomorrow. You can pay money for it. You give, like you said, a deposit, or you do Meshicha. None of it takes effect because you don't know what the price is. You don't rely on buying this B'chlal. So there, as Gemara says here, Pasak, if they set the price, Sam Chadaite. So then when the guy makes a Kinyan, so the guy knows that this is going to be in effect, and the Yid also relies that it's going to take effect because they know the price. Loi Pasak, however, when there's no price set, Loi Sam Chadaite. So then there's no, you're not relying that this kinyan will take effect. So this is, if you say that the kinyan here is Meshicha. So therefore Rav Ashi says, L'didi nami. I'm saying the pshat in the Mishnah is with money. But it's the same point. Alfagav the Kodem late dinner, even if the guy already gave a dinner, a money for the kinyan, but pasak, if the price was set, some chadaite. So then he knows what the price is. When he gives that dinner, he knows that what it is, so the kinyan takes effect. Loi pasak, if they did not set a price, loi some chadaite. So the guy, even though he gives that dinner, the kinyan will not be in effect. So it's going to be yayin nesach in the possession of the yid, and that's going to be the problem. Okay, there's one more case here. Let's just finish off the Indian. The Gemara brings a question on Rav Ashi. Ravina asks Rav Ashi, Toshama. So let's bring a raya from the following halacha. The Amar Abchia Bar Abba Amar Rab Yechanan. So Rab Yechanan said, Ben Noach Nerag, Ben Noach will be chayiv misa for Geneva. One of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach is that he's not allowed to steal. And a guy that is over on any of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach is chayiv misa. So a guy will be chayiv misa al pachas mishava pruta if he steals from a yid, even money or anything that's even less than a shava pruta. And v'loi nitin lehishavin. And this is not something that he's obligated to give back to the Yid, because the Yid is moichelit. Yid is moichel. It's less than a shava pruta, has no value for him. The point is, for the Yid, it has no value. But for the guy, by a guy, even less than a shava pruta, is something that is valuable for a guy. So therefore, with the guy that's taking this, it's less than a shava pruta, so he took something, and he got something that for him is considered to be significant. And therefore, he's going to be chayiv misa on this geneva. So the Gemara asks, if you're going to say that by a guy, when he takes something, mishicha, that itself doesn't create a kinyan, why should be chayiv misa on this? When he takes this shava pruta, so he made no kinyan. There is no act of a kinyan here that he takes it, that he acquires it to be kind of this. So as the Mefarshim explained, the basis of the Gemara's question over here is that regarding a regular case of Geneva, and a guy actually steals a real amount of money, not less than a shova pruta, the reason why the guy is chayiv misa is not because of what the gazlan, gained by this. It's because of what he took away from the person that he stole from. So it doesn't really make a difference if whether the act that he did is a kinyan or is not a kinyan. It's the chesaron. It's what he took away from the nigzal, from the owner, is the reason why he'll be chayiv misa. But over here, what he took from the Yisrael is not considered to be a chesaron. It's a pachas mishava pruta. Elamai, why is it exela? Because the guy, he gained something. He got something now new that he acquired in his possession. But you could only say that if the act that he did by a regular sale would be a maisa kinyan, meshicha. Then, in the context of Geneva, I would say as well that what he took, he now gave, he took in his possession. But if this act of meshicha is not at all a maisa kinyan, so then even in the context of Geneva, it's irrelevant. It's considered to be nothing. Not he gained anything. Not the Yid lost anything that's of value to him. So then there should be no Geneva involved. So why would he be chayiv misa? There's no Geneva involved in this. So the Gemara answers, no, the reason is actually different. Mishum de tzare li Yisrael. True, the guy gained nothing, because according to Rav Ashi, there's no kinyan of Mashiach. And the Yid lost nothing also, because it's less than a shava pruta. But tsar, though, tsar the Yid had. It's a pain for the Yid. The guy comes and grabs something away from him. He didn't lose anything actually, but it is still a pain that the Yid had, and that's part of the Isser of Geneva by a guy that'll be chayiv misa for. Just this act of Geneva that causes tsar. So now the Gemara explains, Omai loy nitan lehishavin. When it says there, loy nitan lehishavin, that you're not obligated to return it, what does this mean? According to this answer, the Gemara is saying that the guy never got it. It's not even his bachlal. Loy nitan lehishavin, the mitzvah of lehishavin, hashavas to v'heishavas akzela, is that you own it. You're a gazlan, you got it. It's in your possession. Now you have to return it. But over here, the guy never got it. What does it mean when Rabbi Yechanan said loy nitan lehishavin? So the Gemara says, you're right. That's exactly what it means. The einoi b'teiras hishavin. Because the guy never got it, and the Yid really never lost anything, it's not shaykh b'chlal to talk about giving it back. That's the pshari in what Rabbi Yechanan said. Oh, but the Gemara says, though, there's a continuation of what Rabbi Yechanan said. Rabbi Yechanan went on to say, this guy that stole from a Yid less than a shava pruta, another guy comes and steals this, not from the first guy, the second guy is chayiv misa as well for this. So the Gemara asks, okay, now Bishloi Mereisha, in the Reisha you could say that the reason why the first guy that steals from a Yid would be Chayiv is Mishum Detzare Li Yisrael. As the Gemara answered, because of the pain that he caused to a Yid, that itself is the reason why he's Chayiv, he's Nerag on this. But Ela Seifa, however, in the second case over here, when the second guy is stealing from the first guy, so Mayavid, what did he do? He's not causing any loss to this guy, and he's not gaining anything over here in this. He's not getting anything from it, because it's Mashiach, which according to Rav Ashi is not a kinyan b'chlal. So why would he be chayiv misa for this? So Ella, the Gemara concludes, Shema mina, from this I see, Mashiach ba'oivik kechavim kaina. That Mashiach by a guy does have a power to create a kinyan, and therefore in the context of Geneva as well, by a pachas mishava pruta, the Mashiach itself is a kinyan, and therefore will be chayiv misa for this. Shema mina, this is a proof to Ameimer's opinion.
It's safe